All right, everybody, welcome back to another Hawk podcast. We have a very important episode today and a very special guest. And before I introduce her, just to give you guys some context, so it was a week ago yesterday that my brother and I were trying to find something that we could actually do that might possibly be successful or helpful within this current political climate. And then I remembered that there are 3 special elections coming up to fill vacant seats in the House of Representatives that have been vacated by Republicans. 2 of those elections are in the state of Florida on April 1st. And so I want to introduce my very special guest, the Democratic candidate for Florida's, it's the 1st district, correct?
Correct. The first.
All right, Florida's 1st Congressional District, formerly occupied by one Matt Gaetz. Everybody, please say hello to Gay Valimont.
Hello,
welcome, Gay.
everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I know that you and your campaign are in crunch time right now, and you know the thing that has drawn me to these 3 special elections, 2 in Florida, 1 in New York, is that the current balance in the House is 217 to 215. If Democrats win these 3 special elections, they take back control of the House.
Yep.
Okay, so we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up the 4th week of Donald Trump's 2nd term. What are your impressions so far?
Shock and awe, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think that it's intended that way. I think the most egregious, his first order of business was not lowering the price of eggs, but it was releasing 1,600 felons into our world. Started with that, so it has gotten much worse every day. I think everybody, and particularly people of my district, are confused about what's going on and what their rights are, and the programs that they're involved in may be going away.
So why don't you take a moment and describe for us kind of, geographically within Florida and demographically, describe Florida's 1st district for us.
Yeah, we are essentially South Alabama. We are the very end of the panhandle that meets right where Mobile is. And our district is made up of Escambia County, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and a little part of Walton County. We are called the beautiful Emerald Coast. It's a beautiful place with poor representation. Our demographic is made up of mostly military and retired veterans. And we have quite a diverse group or diverse community in that we have our coastal community, but you go 15 miles north and it's very rural. So we have a mix of people here and a lot of civil servants that are struggling right now. We have the largest number of veterans here that are struggling with Schedule F and what's going to happen to them now. Nobody has the answers, and I'm trying to find them and trying to get to Congress and stop all this madness.
Well, yeah. Okay, so that brings up a lot.
Right.
Republicans in the House just released the framework of their budget yesterday. They want to zero out Medicaid.
Yep.
When Elon Musk's Doge committee first came out, they wanted to zero out the budget for the VA. And now Donald Trump and Elon Musk are trying to rid the executive branch of federal employees. It sounds like all 3 of those things would hit your district very hard.
All of them. All of them. We've already had 6 doctors take the buyout at our VA clinic.
Oh, wow.
And we service 3,600 vets. And we can't afford to lose doctors. We already have a problem with retention because of our facilities that I'm trying to correct. And it's going to we're going to run into veterans that are not getting services. And I don't know how that's acceptable for anyone.
And okay, so you also have, I think you have some military bases in your district as well, correct?
We do. We have 7 military installations. We have 2 major bases here.
Wow.
We house special operations, and we're the cradle of naval aviation. So everything we have all branches of military that are represented here, and and a lot of people live here and they move to California because we don't have the things and the necessary resources here for people to want to stay. I'm working really hard to make sure that people have the resources that they have, particularly our veterans and our enlisted. Our enlisted are barely making ends meet, and they are living in our communities. And now they're talking about taking those benefits away from our enlisted. They have to use the SNAP program to feed their kids, and now they want to get
Well,
rid of that.
and Republicans want to cut that in the House by 20% as well. Uh, okay, so from what you told me, it seems like it might be a fair assessment on my part to say that the federal government, the executive branch, is the number one employer in your county.
Absolutely, in all four counties, yes.
Oh, sorry, yeah, in your district. Wow.
Mhm.
And okay, so and 6 months ago, Matt Gaetz was the congressman for this district, correct?
Correct. Matt Gaetz
So they,
represented us for 7.5 years and passed zero bills.
wow, he sounds like Jim Jordan from Ohio.
Right? Makes a lot
My,
of noise, but he did absolutely nothing but throw Congress into a stalemate for 36 days.
yeah, well, he's got to get those Fox News hits.
Right?
Um,
He's a celebrity.
so primarily Republican conservative county.
Yep.
I don't like using either of those words anymore to describe Donald Trump's MAGA base. There's nothing conservative about him.
No.
Uh, and it's Donald Trump, it's his new administration and Elon Musk that wants to make all of these people unemployed.
Yep. Wants to gut our federal government. And that is, we can't, this district cannot afford for 50% to be unemployed. We already have a food insecurity problem, and it's going to make it worse.
Well, and now we've got our new Secretary of Defense, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth. He's sure hitting it out of the
Probably the
park in
worst.
his first week.
Yeah. I think he may be the worst of all of the appointments. Although Cash Patel is,
He'll be a close second.
right?
So you just mentioned food insecurity in preparing for today. I mean, I just made a list off of the top of my head of some of the things. I mean, I'm in the Bay Area in California, and some of the things that I'm aware of just from following the news that Floridians are dealing with: skyrocketing homeowners insurance, auto insurance, rising housing costs.
Yep.
I think Florida's got the most expensive cost of living of any state right
It
now.
does.
Let me ask you this. Over the last few years, have Republicans from Florida in the House or the Senate done anything to address those issues?
Oh, no. No. In the last 2 years, it's all been the previous administration's problem, But what we have not seen is Donald Trump said he's going to decrease, the cost of living on day one. There have been no efforts to do that. And let me tell you, while we talk about the cost of living in Florida, our everything is higher in Florida. Everything is higher in Florida, and it can all be thrown back to my opponent. My opponent, who is the CFO of Florida, who has had years to fix the insurance problem. And that's what, when I talk to people, it's insurance, insurance, insurance. And it's not just homeowners insurance, but it's car insurance, health insurance, which is the second or third highest bill everybody pays every month. And then you can't depend on it when you need it.
Well, and I think when you're talking about those entities, health insurance, homeowners insurance, auto insurance, those entities, those companies can dramatically increase your premiums without even checking with you first
Yep.
because you're stuck.
That's the bill I got. Yeah,
I mean, especially as it relates to homeowners because it's connected to people's mortgages.
right. And you cannot buy a house if you don't have homeowners insurance.
Right.
If you're going to
So,
finance a house.
so what? Remind me of your opponent's name.
Jimmy Patronus. We call him Panama Patronus because he's not from here. He's from Panama City.
So, and you used a title for him. I mean, again, I've been out in California for almost the last 25 years.
Right.
You used the title of CFO, Chief Financial Officer for the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Is I mean, is Florida a corporation?
They think it is in Tallahassee. Yeah.
Oh man.
And he's held that position. He's the only one that has the power to control the insurance companies or to put regulation on what we need and what we have to pay in Florida. And regulation's one of those bad words for Republicans. They don't want to regulate. All the regulations have to go. Well, that happens to kill the consumer if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't step in.
Well, I was speaking with someone else this morning, and I said, my thought is that one of the reasons that Elon Musk is doing what he's doing at the federal level in purging all of these federal employees is that he and Trump understand that they can't get rid of the EPA. They can't get rid of Housing and Urban Development. They can't get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but they can fire everyone who works there.
Yeah,
And it's like a backdoor way to get rid of regulations because there's no one left to enforce them.
exactly. And it's not like they're going to cut down on the workforce. They're saying they're going to cut all this. What they want to do is get rid of all the people that do not support Donald Trump. And so the
Yeah.
people that are taking the buyouts are people that went, I don't want to work this job anymore under this administration. So they're offering these buyouts and people are taking them. And they're just going to replace those people with sycophants and people
Yeah.
that will do whatever the Trump administration says to do, even though it may not be legal.
Yeah. And that the replacement part is directly out of Project 2025.
Yep.
I
All of
believe I believe the second chapter of Project 2025 on executive power, which was written by our new Director of Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vought,
Yep.
who was just confirmed a couple days ago.
That may be the worst appointment. I'm not sure. It's still all up in the air.
Well, it's like they're all frightening for different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, Russell Vought is frightening from the perspective of he believes in a near dictatorial unitary executive
Yep.
in the executive branch with total control. But then there's RFK Jr., and we may have a bird flu pandemic coming up.
Yeah.
And then there's Kash Patel. I mean, God knows what that guy's going to do.
Yeah.
And now Tulsi Gabbard, of all people, is in charge of the United States 17 intelligence agencies.
And all of our secrets. Someone who sat down with Assad.
And lied about it.
Yeah. Sat down with
And
Assad.
lied about it to her own staff when she was in Congress.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you about a couple other things here that are specifically related to part of your background.
Oh.
So Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie, member of the House, has introduced legislation to make constitutional carry of firearms the nationwide standard, meaning no background checks, no licensing, no permits, no classes, no
Open
training,
carry.
no nothing. If
Right.
you pass a background check and can legally possess a firearm, you can carry it in public. And second, Donald Trump just issued an executive order ordering a review of federal gun control laws. And I wanted to ask you about these things because of your past history with a group called Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. So why don't you tell people about that part of your history and then what you think of these two things that just happened?
Yeah. Well, So I think it was 2014 when I joined Moms to Me in Action for Gun Sense in America, and I became the chapter leader for Florida. So we had 12 local groups throughout Florida. This was all through the Pulse massacre and then all the way through Parkland. And so there was an appetite for people to get involved, and we increased our membership 400%. I spent most of my time in Tallahassee talking to legislators and testifying in front of committees the facts. So gun violence is preventable all the way around. Gun violence is preventable. And we know that more guns don't make us safer, right? We have 400 million guns in this country. 400 million guns. And what the opposition says is that, criminals will always find a gun. Well, it's because legal gun owners let them do that. I tell
Yeah.
everybody, at the point of sale, every gun was sold legally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when people get tired of guns and they sell them to someone else, because in Florida there's a loophole, it's perfectly legal for a person-to-person sale. So you could sell your gun to your friend without a background check, and that's how
Wow.
we get this. That's how we get this black market of guns through
Right.
person-to-person sales, and that's at least a quarter of the gun sales in Florida every year. So when legal gun owners say, oh, criminals will just get criminals, I need legal gun owners to help me solve this problem. That's the first thing. Thomas Massey, come on. He's a gun extremist.
Yes.
He's a gun extremist, and all those bills do is pander to the gun lobby so that he can make more money. Campaign donations. I don't
Yeah.
believe that there's an appetite for that, but man, if I am the one seat that can stand in the way of that from happening, how perfect would that be? Because I cannot wait to get there and
Yeah.
talk to Thomas Massey about all the horrible things that he is going to perpetrate through this bill. I mean, when we passed Stand Your Ground in Florida, our gun homicide rate went up 32%. And that's just one ease on our gun laws. If we have no gun laws, imagine. You see gun violence in the news every day. More people die from gun violence than they do car accidents every day. It's ridiculous. And I'm ready to fight it.
Well, hopefully there'll be a time a couple of months from now where you and Josh Weil from Florida's 6th District can corner Thomas Massey in the hallway of Congress
Right.
as colleagues.
I'm looking forward to meeting Marjorie Taylor Greene in the hallway, but sure.
Oh boy, or in a bathroom, you know.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so well, and so I mean, with this new Congress, it's a super close divide in the House. It's 53 to 47 in the Senate, so a
Yep.
3-seat majority. And when we talk about the concept of legislation, I mean, the thing that I'm watching out for the most right now is, are Senate Republicans going to keep the filibuster?
Yeah.
Or are they just going to switch everything to a straight majority vote? Because they're going to get a lot of pressure from Donald Trump to do that.
Yeah.
Because he does not want to compromise with Democrats on anything. He doesn't want to compromise with some Republicans on anything.
Nope.
And I don't know how long. I don't know how long it's going to take, but sooner or later, I think probably sooner rather than later, we're going to see whether or not this current Supreme Court is going to stand up to Trump on all of these things. The lower courts have been doing a great job so far, but
It's going to be interesting, particularly on the 14th Amendment. Being challenged, and it's blatantly illegal.
yeah,
But will the Supreme Court stand up for the Constitution or for Donald Trump? We don't
yeah.
know. We shouldn't have to question whether they would stand up for the law.
I mean, so I interviewed a couple of weeks ago. I interviewed a woman who's a PhD, an immunologist, has started some biotech companies, who was a wealth of information during the COVID pandemic, and we had a discussion about the potential for a coming bird flu pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You lived through the coronavirus pandemic under the capable leadership of Ron DeSantis. How was that experience for you, and what do you think that portends for a second round?
Well, the guardrails are off. There's nobody to tell you that you have to wear a mask. There's nobody that will even give you um, the right information. Is no longer coming out of the federal government, right? Um, and now we have RFK is in charge of all things medical. It is insane. Number
Well,
one,
and Dr. Oz, don't forget about Dr.
yeah,
Oz.
Dr. Oz, because you have to have a TV personality to accompany him. Uh, no, we're in a world of trouble, and
Yeah.
as citizens, we're going to have to rely on private citizens to give us the appropriate information and deliver it. I think one of the things that Democrats are so crappy at doing is delivering our message loudly and proudly, and facts matter. Um, we have to, when they lie, we have to counter with their lies. I think that the congressman, the Democratic caucus is doing their best in Congress right now to stand up. I spoke with Maxwell Frost a couple days ago, and he was standing, in front of the Department of Education. It was nearing a fist fight. You can't get in the building, and you're an elected position. I think it's insane what is happening, but we can't roll over. That's why this seat is so important.
Yeah. And so I guess I'll go in this direction for a minute. So I made a TikTok last week, I guess it was last Wednesday night, saying my brother and I were going to focus on these special elections. That TikTok got like 1.5 million views, and
Wow.
we met a whole ton of people. A whole ton of people contacted us, and I want to mention, and we'll put links. I'll put a link for your campaign website in our show notes, a link for Josh
Perfect.
Weil's campaign website, for my TikTok page and my YouTube page. But one woman who we met is a woman named Z, who's working with an organization called National Ground Game.
Mhm.
I'll put links for them in the show notes as well. But the reason that I mention her is that so there's a deadline of March 1st to register new voters for these districts,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay, and so Z is on the ground. They need money. They need bodies. They're registering as many new people as they can between now and March 1st.
That's what I hear.
And
We can't coordinate with PACs, but that's what I hear.
exactly, yeah. That's why I'm the one saying that. I know campaigns and PACs aren't allowed to talk to
That's
each
right.
other.
Hmm.
But then, so after March 1st, I want to shift my focus to your campaign and Josh's campaign. And one of these days, maybe we'll get a date for the special election up in New York.
Maybe.
The Democrats up there, are,
Chomping at the bit.
they're being creative with that date right now. But so I wanted to mention that to everybody. So please check the links in the show notes if you'd like to get involved. And there's all kinds of stuff for phone banking, volunteering in person, postcards. You can donate money. There's
Absolutely.
all kinds of options. It's incredibly important that we win these two seats in Florida.
We need everybody. Anything anybody can do from across the country.
So another thing that I wanted to ask you about, one thing that was heartbreaking to me was seeing the defeat, even though it had a huge majority of votes, of the abortion rights thing that was on the last election in Florida. You guys still have your 6-week abortion ban, right?
We do. We do. And the closest place to go is Virginia.
So the entire southeast
The entire
of
Southeast.
the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
People are having to change, the,
Well, I shouldn't say southeast because it goes all the way over to Texas.
yeah, it's the entire
Oh
South.
man.
Yeah. And the majority of people that need these services don't have the ability to travel like that.
Yeah.
Um, what is our solution now? change the government.
Yeah.
It was in Florida, it was heartbreaking because, they're trying to change the way that you can add a constitutional amendment. You can't
Right.
put signatures anymore. They don't want any of that anymore because it worked. And then they
Yeah.
had this whole, the state of Florida paid for these huge programs, these people to go out with the buses with dead babies on the side. And like, it was a whole big thing that was worth the 3 points that we lost that by.
I was going to say, I mean, so under the rules to amend the state constitution, that initiative had to get 60% of the vote,
Yeah.
right?
That's
And
50.
it won 57 to 43, and
Yep.
it didn't pass.
Heartbreaking.
So it won by 14 points, and that still wasn't enough. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's been the case in every red state where an initiative like this has come on a statewide ballot. It's been almost 60-40 in every instance.
Yeah.
Even Ohio, where I grew up. One other thing that I wanted to mention to you, you might not even know this yet. This was just in the news yesterday. An interview with a Florida resident who has recently received a full pardon from his 22-year-long prison sentence.
I did see
Proud
that.
Boys leader Enrique Tarrio said in an interview yesterday that he wants to run for your district in 2026.
That's what I hear, and I can't wait. I hope I'm sitting in this seat so that I can run against him. This,
Well, if we all get our act together, hopefully we can watch you and he debate in a couple
yeah,
years.
that would be awesome. That would be
I
the best thing ever.
going. I mean, just it's still two things about the last election. Just two specific things are just mind blowing to me.
Hmm.
Number one, that abortion rights was not more of a driver of people to vote to the polls
Yeah.
and a more significant, decisive issue. And second, it's like Trump got reelected. He pardoned all these people. And now you and I are having a conversation about Enrique Tarrio running for Congress.
Yeah. It's upside down time.
I mean, I'm 56 years old, and I say to people all the time, this is not how I envisioned my mid 50s in the United States. I mean, how
Yeah.
jarring has the last several years been for you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know anything about my background or my history, but in 2020, my husband was diagnosed with ALS, and my son was diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor 6 months after that. Um, my 8-year-old son, 9-year-old son by then, passed away 3 years ago this September, and my husband passed away 6 months after him.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry.
Um, Tragedy, grief. A lot of Americans are living in grief, but like it gives you a different perspective on the things that are important and the things that are not important. And what I'm looking at this Trump shock and awe for the first 21 days is a lot of it's just BS, and it's going to go
Hmm.
down in court. But it is designed to scare people, to make people fearful, to make people hate something. That's what these things are designed to do. Legally, he can't do a lot of this stuff, and legally, the courts will take care of it. But living under this constant stress, I need for people to like sit back, take a minute, and before you get irate about every little thing, take the one thing that you can work on and do that.
Hmm.
Because if you get overwhelmed, then you go indoors and you don't do anything. We can't get overwhelmed with this BS. We have to we have to fix the things that we can fix and get to the next 2 years.
Yeah. And there's no better way to do that than by winning these two elections in the state of Florida.
Yep.
And I mean, to further just explain to everybody, it's a 217 to 215 margin right now. If Democrats win these two special elections in Florida, it's 217 to 217. It's tied. And the
No
House of
Speaker Johnson.
Representatives, exactly, the House of Representatives is different from the Senate in one key way. The Senate has an even number of votes. You can have a 50-50 tie. So the vice president can cast a tie-breaking vote. There is no such mechanism in the House of Representatives. There is no tie-breaking vote. If there's a tie vote on a bill, that bill fails. It does not pass. And so it could bring Trump's legislative agenda to a screeching halt, and until that last special election is held up in New York.
Yep.
But it's just one thing that I've talked about a lot online over the last 3 years. There's a columnist for The Atlantic named Adam Serwer, and he wrote an article at the beginning of 2017 after just watching the 2016 campaign.
Yeah.
And he wrote an article that then became a book that's called The Cruelty is the Point. And it's all about how Trump supporters form community with one another through being cruel to people that they don't like.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a better way to describe the House budget that we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
$4.5 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and zeroing out funding for Medicaid, which serves poor people and the elderly.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we've got the world's richest man just waddling through our executive branch, taking money from poor people and sick people and old people and students. And it's just...
Yeah. I kind of feel like, Elon Musk is rambling through all of our underwear drawers. Like he just got into all of our stuff. He has all of our social security numbers, and we have no idea what him and his group of computer nerds are doing with our information. And it's ridiculous. I can't understand why even the Republicans would not stand up and go, where is this going? Because Elon Musk has their information too.
Yeah. Well, and he's not doing things. He and Trump and Republicans in the House and the Senate are not doing things that are just going to target people who voted for Kamala Harris.
Right.
They're hurting. I mean, just with the USAID destruction that Elon Musk did last week in refusing to honor that organization's contracts, there are American farmers who are losing their farms right now who voted for Donald Trump.
Yep. Some of my farmers. That is very...
You have some of those. That's
part of
so,
my...
yeah. So you've got some rural areas in your district.
Yeah, we do. And I think 2 years ago, we had $9 million in subsidies. And then Matt lost all that. And last year, we only had $1 million in subsidies because the big corporations are trying to come in and buy the farmland, which farmland we need to keep to feed ourselves, and clear cutting and building very expensive apartments that nobody's living in because they can't afford them.
Right.
Because that is also corporate greed.
Well, and even if they could afford to live in them, they wouldn't be able to afford to insure them.
That's true. That's 100% true.
Yeah. All right. So we're in our last couple of minutes here. And again, please everybody check all of the links that I'm going to put in the show notes. We've got about a 3 week, well, not even, a little more than 2 weeks of a very hard push for new voter registrations.
Yep.
And then we'll be off to the races with campaigning and things like that. So any closing thoughts?
Well, I also want to remind people, if you know people in Florida, everybody got kicked off the vote by mail rolls after the election. So for this special election, we have to re-enroll, and it's typically all of our older Floridians that vote by mail. We have to re-enroll all of those people in vote by mail. Most of them have no idea they're supposed to. And this just falls in line with the Florida legislature and Ron DeSantis trying to make it harder for everybody to vote. I mean, they don't even want anybody to know in this district that there is a special
Yeah.
election.
Well, my tagline for a lot of that stuff over the last few years is that Republicans can only win by cheating. And something doesn't have to be illegal for it to constitute cheating.
I agree. I agree.
Because, I mean, I've kept my eye on Florida legislatively for the last several years, and it's just the stuff they pass with great enthusiasm and excitement
Yeah.
that is going to demonstrably hurt their own residents and constituents is
Yeah.
just never-endingly mind-blowing to me.
Well, the Venezuelans in South Florida are up in arms. Can't believe that Donald Trump, lied to them.
Yeah.
They both,
It's only been 9 years. You'd think they'd pick up on that by now. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, Gay. I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time.
absolutely.
Me and my brother and a whole bunch of us are doing everything we can to help you be successful in this campaign. And, hopefully a couple of months from now, you can come back and you can be the first member of Congress that I've interviewed on my podcast.
That's a deal. That is a
Outstanding.
deal. I
All
promise
right.
you to disappoint anybody. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Gay. Thanks, everybody. Please check the links in the show notes. Thank you.